Hello and welcome to the beginning of a new game. And it is new. This is legitimately the first time I have fired up Football Manager 21. Wasn't involved in the testing process this time, despite being an assistant researcher for AFC Filed. Football Manager 21, the beta version, was released just last night. Before the game proper arrives on the 24th of November, I'm going to spend the next 2 weeks in a new 10-episode YouTube series, becoming familiar with all the new and upgraded features. I'm Charlie, and this will be just my second YouTube Football Manager series after last season on FM20 with AFC Filed Still We Rise. My background is that I've been writing about Football Manager for a while now, starting on the Higher Tempo Press, now with A-League FC, and of course there are my duties with Sports Interactive. First and foremost, I just want to say that I hope you and your loved ones are doing okay in these challenging current times and looking after yourself. Secondly, a couple of thank yous to the good folks at Sports Interactive for producing another amazing game, even in the climate as it is, and to A-League FC for their continued support. My chosen team for the beta is Austin FC in MLS. I know what you're thinking, why make it difficult for myself from the off? But that's sort of the point. There are actually two reasons I've arrived in Texas. Number one is that I was going to go with Charlotte FC. Charlotte only come into Major League Soccer in 2022. I'd got my teams mixed up, so I'd wrote down that I was going to join Charlotte. I produced thumbnails and all of a sudden realised, nope, I've got the wrong team. So I've switched over to Austin FC. The second reason is that I do want to build a club from the ground up. There's something about being there from the very start. We'll have the drafts and assigning basically a new squad. The trophy cabinet is bare. They've not kicked a ball in the MLS just yet. The reason that I am doing the beta save is, as I said, to re-familiarise myself with Football Manager 21. I haven't played Football Manager for 3 weeks now, and I know that doesn't seem a lot, but when you go from doing something every single day, it becomes second nature. Take some time out, and it's difficult to get straight back in as you wish. So that is what we're going to do for the next 9 and a bit episodes. Coming soon, we will have episodes dedicated to tactics, to training, to signing players, to looking at our squad and everything that goes in between. We'll even play a couple of matches as well. In fact, shall we see who we've got in our upcoming friendlies? We play Nashville. Now that is a tasty one. Nashville, of course, recently also an expansion side into Major League Soccer. They've done really well this season and they've got themselves up into the playoffs. I'm actually not going to look too much at the news items today, mostly because I want to avoid that MLS contract and registration information. The MLS is quite a complicated league and it's difficult to understand all the different registration and squad budget, the cap rules that are there. So we're going to do that in an episode tomorrow. That is going to be a dedicated 20 minutes to understanding exactly how the MLS rules and regulations work. Some of the other new features here in Football Manager 21 include scouting. Something that if you've seen the first play, the live streams that have been happening over YouTube from Sports Interactive, you'll know that there's going to be a meeting had before taking part in the transfer windows. Already we are being recommended a couple of players. Edson Brahide, 37, I don't think so. This is a recommendation from Claudio Reyna, who is our Director of Football. I'm not going to get rid of him completely. He also, our chief scout has recommended a goalie. No, not a goalie, but a goalie. We have a transfer budget of 3.88 million, but no wage budget just yet. The wage budget for the entire MLS is around 78 grand, and that's where that figure comes from, just here on the right. The MLS is an interesting league. There are a couple of jobs available here in the US. Atlanta United, LA Galaxy, and of course Charlotte FC, who currently play, well, they don't play, but they are situated in the lower leagues. So Atlanta United are a really interesting one, and actually one of my recommendations for a Football Manager 21 save. Atlanta had a shocking year in 2020. Starting the season under Frank de Boer, never really got off the ground, and for the first time in their history, they missed out on the MLS Cup playoffs. They still have a very good squad, and if you look at the players that they have available to them, the likes of Brad Guzan, Joseph Martinez, Brooks Lennon is there, Ezekiel Barco, he is there as well. All of these players are fantastic. Just look at them. Up front, the main man is there, Joseph Martinez, designated player, the Venezuelan. He scores goals for fun, but hasn't been fit for a lot of this season, and that has led to people like John Gallagher playing up front. He's from Dundalk. Good player, I have to say. In their last game, I think it was their last game, against Columbus Crew. No, it wasn't. It was the one before last. They managed to get Franco Escobar sent off. He's a really good player as well. Should have been better. Jeff Lorentowicz in defence, 37 himself. Edgar Castillo, he's good at left back. They should not have missed out on the playoffs as an absolute minimum. Stephen Glass is their coach. At the minute, he will revert back to being just a coach. He's currently designated as their manager. Former Watford player, I believe. Yes, 2 seasons with Watford, from 2001 to 2003. Other than that, he was with Newcastle United and a couple of clubs in Scotland, Dunfermline, Hibernian, but he started out at Aberdeen. He ended his career actually over in the US with the Carolina Railhawks, and thus stayed on to become a coach here at Atlanta United. Currently caretaker manager. So whether he gets a job or not, I'm not sure. I wonder who the favourite is for it. Can I still see that? This is part of me having not actually played the game. Favourite for the job is Bruce Arena. That's an interesting choice. Bruce Arena is the current New England Revolution manager. So that might be a bit of a coup for them to get the former US national team coach. The other job is LA Galaxy over in MLS if you fire up a new game with the US selected. Now, LA Galaxy are another big club. They've won plenty in the past. You'll obviously be able to name some very famous players, the likes of Landon Donovan, David Beckham, Robbie Keane, Steven Gerrard. They've all turned out for the Galaxy. Post-Zlatan, however, they have struggled. And Javier Hernandez was brought in to basically replace him, despite being a very different player. It's kind of like how Manchester United have now signed Cavani, who's basically Zlatan, who they probably needed a year or so ago. Chicharito has not really done the business. Again, another striker beset with injuries. So it's been a bit of a non-starter for him so far over in MLS. Here at Austin, though, I'm interested to see our expectations. So in Major League Soccer, you have the MLS Cup, that happens at the end of the season, and the MLS Supporters Shield is the sort of combined leagues of the Eastern and Western Conference. So our expectation is to avoid finish bottom of the Supporters Shield, but we are allowed to finish bottom of our conference. Sort of makes sense, I suppose. In the US Cup, we are expected to reach the 4th round, and we enter it on the 2nd. In terms of our fixtures, we actually begin the league away at Chicago. That is interesting. So it seems as though we've got a few difficult fixtures against Philadelphia, LAFC, New England, and DC United, of course, formerly the parish of Wayne Rooney, before we play San Diego, Charleston, and Miami FC. They are USL clubs, from what I know. Certainly not MLS, they're the league below. And as you can see, their logos have not made it into the game. I haven't actually uploaded any packs into this save just yet. I haven't loaded any into the new game, purely because if there is an issue with it, and down on the bottom left there, you'll see they've got this is a beta, and then the report bug. Now, if you do that, and you've got all manner of things attached, club badges, kits and everything, it's then difficult to really figure out where the issue is, whether it's something to do with what you've done and what you've edited and changed, or it is just the game itself. I think, spot a problem when I fired up the game just earlier, is that if you take off some of these nations, I think it was, if I unselect the Canadian Premier League, all of a sudden the MLS jobs disappear as well. A little bit strange, that one. Not quite sure what's happened there. I suspect it's just a mistake. Football Manager 21 has gone through obviously quite a big upgrade, as the game does every single year. I know some people get a bit up at it about it's not actually a new game, it's just basically an evolution, and it is. That's the sort of the nature of releasing a game every year. All those people that were clamouring for the beta just a couple of days ago, what would they do if it was only released every 2 years? They'd be going mad. So, things that have changed, obviously, the first thing that strikes you immediately is the look. There is only one skin this year. You can have a look at our preferences. I will just show you that. You can't select the light and the dark, which previously you could do before. As you can see right in the centre of the screen here, skin, Football Manager, and that's it. That's the only one that's been set in there already. And as you can see, I do like to have my own little stamp on things. I always zoom out 95%, get it on full screen. We're not doing the windowed business. If you do that, I just find you tempted to do other things. But I will say, it does appear that the game is a lot quicker this season than last. In fact, if I do a quick save here, you'll see. I hope this works out and it's quick as I thought. As there you go. My laptop's not brilliant. It's often whirring like a helicopter on takeoff. That went pretty quick to save the game, and I've got, this is a large database, Mexico, Canada and the US all loaded. Haven't actually tried it with England yet. I'm sort of putting off looking at AFC filed for now, because there'll always be something wrong. Something that annoyed me in fact it was a few weeks ago, Filed signed a player on loan. It was probably late in October, and the term is only going till January, or the middle of January, and it wasn't considered a long enough loan to make it into the game. And it really bothers me that when I fire up Filed, he's not going to be there for me. It's the start of the season in the game. I want to play with the players that are there now, today. And to do that, I'd have to then try and sign him on loan, which there's no telling. Anybody knows that Football Manager 21, Football Manager in general, does not reflect the real life. Although that is one of the big changes that has been made. So a lot of the leagues have had a bit of a development in terms of dates, especially over in Europe, where things are being put back. Even in Australia, the league will begin in the 27th of December. So that will make it into the game. The dates will be there. They will reflect real life. Then gradually, probably over a season, maybe a season or two, they will go back to being the dates that we all sort of know and love, the usual start and end dates for the season. So, for example, over in Australia, not only did they start on the 27th of December, but they've got to finish, I think it's by the 30th of June, which is quite a big turnaround. And there'll probably be a big run of games happening over there. As I'm connected to A-League FC, obviously, I do know quite a bit about the leagues over there. I do know a little bit about the MLS, I have to confess. I've had 2 previous MLS saves, neither of which lasted more than a season. I was with Minnesota United for 1, and then I was with Inter Miami last season. So both were over quite quickly. I think the Inter Miami one was only 6 months. I think I was there. Didn't really get the full benefit of a season in MLS, which I probably won't do this time either in the beta. What's going to happen is this is very much a sort of look around, a bit of a poke at FM21, and for me to refamiliarise myself. So when the main game is released on the 24th of November, I am good to go. And obviously, the thing about it is, this is the beta. There will be problems, there will be things to fix. Don't get too attached to it, because a lot of things get upgraded, especially where data and research are concerned as well. So do log on to the SI forums. I know people have a bit of a thing about that. Get on there, report any issues, and of course, if you spot that a player is in the wrong place, let them know as well so that they can fix it. I did see somebody post today about Virgil van Dijk, saying that he doesn't have his injury in Football Manager 21, and that's because he didn't have it when the season started. So it is quite complicated to get your head around, even though obviously now he's going to be out for a long-term injury. You can, of course, when the editor is released, which I think is with the full release on the 24th of November, you can get in there and give him an injury if you really want to. That will be the time when I move away from the MLS and look at my long-term saves this year. So I'm really hoping to do a long save for over many a season. That will be alluded to in a little advert at the end of this episode. I also obviously have been asked by my friends at A-League FC to move into the A-League, but I want to do that in real time. So I think that will happen more in December, probably. That will come out on the 27th of December. So what I do before then to run alongside my long-term save, I'm not sure. I'd love to do something in terms of a women's football save on Football Manager, if possible. I know there are databases out there. I had tested one on Football Manager 20 and it worked a treat. So I'm hoping that I can do something like that, because any time that you get the opportunity to do something a little bit different on Football Manager, I think it's really worth it, especially because if you are an experienced player, the game is getting pretty easy. That's why when I do my long-term save, there will be rules involved that I have to follow. It's sort of adding little layers in. I've always kind of done that for a lot of years now. Going back to, I think it was Football Manager 2006, when I took over, I think it was at Arsenal, it must have been, and I could only sign English players. Always make it a little bit more difficult for yourself. If you are an experienced football manager, then you do end up giving yourself these additional little challenges, and as well you should. It's your game. I remember reading something just a few weeks ago, and it was somebody talking about, I think it was the Football Manager Formula 1 game that had been released, and they were asking about whether people use flashbacks, which allows you to move back in the game and basically correct something that you've done wrong, whether you've run wide from the track, or you've hit another car, or you've jumped the start, or something like that. And there was quite a bit of scorn poured on people that were saying, yeah, I use that all the time. But it's about your enjoyment. And I think that was the point that was missed, is that if your enjoyment is to enjoy a game to its most nth degree, then that's up to you. And whatever that is your own preference. If it's to make it as realistic as possible, so if you run wide, well, that's seconds lost in Formula 1. You know, you've gone from first to 8th all of a sudden. You've got to deal with it. Other people will say, well, the game is capable of allowing me to do that, so I will do it. It always makes you think of Guitar Hero back in the day. This is about, 15 years ago? Guitar Hero was out, and it would always advertise, and it would say, hey, you could play this brand spanking track, the headline track. This is the one that you want to play. You can learn how to play it if you play this game. Of course, they don't tell you that to get there, you have to learn how to play 25, 40 other songs before you even get there, and thus make it difficult for yourself. It's like, well, I unlocked this. I unlocked it when I paid with a debit card or a credit card. I put cash on the desk. I should be able to play it. It's whatever your preference is as to how you get the most out of games. And that's how people will approach Football Manager very differently. You'll see a lot of beta saves for the likes of Manchester United, Barcelona, Leicester's obviously a big one at the minute. But you'll get other players that are non-league players that really want to start at the bottom and work their way up. And this is sort of the problem I had in Football Manager 20. In the AFC filed Still We Rise save, I took the Coasters from the National League all the way to 6th in the Championship. We qualified for the playoffs in 4 seasons. A promotion at the end of every year. And it got easy. And I wasn't even buying players, in fact, most of the time. I was just signing players. We ended up bringing in the likes of Cesc Fabregas and Gallagher in midfield from Preston North End. It just didn't feel like it was difficult towards the end, even though it should have been. So hopefully that's something that we can look at here on Football Manager 21. It's not like playing FIFA or Pro Evolution Soccer, whichever is your preference. It's not like you can up the difficulty. It's one game, and you can change your club and make it difficult for yourself. That's partly why I'm here in Austin, over here in Texas, because it's going to be difficult to put a squad together. No MLS team, apart from LAFC, have really hit the ground. In fact, Atlanta, now I think about it. Maybe this is a bad example. But teams generally, if you look at the likes of FC Cincinnati, even to an extent, Nashville and Inter Miami, they've not been world-beating clubs. They've struggled in their first season. They've got to gain traction. FC Cincinnati went through a change where they've now brought in Jaap Stam. So here in the MLS, they are a club that could be on the rise because they've got the likes of Kendall Waston. Waston. Anybody who's a regular viewer will know that my pronunciation of things is not always brilliant. But in their history, can I see competitions? Domestic leagues. So there you go. They were first in the Eastern Conference in 2018. I did not know that. How did I not know that? Is that real? They did quite well, didn't they? This is a really bad example to make. What I'm saying is that not all clubs that come into Major League Soccer do well from the off. One club that only just has really hit the heights of its potential is probably Orlando City. So they, as you can see, they started in 2015 here in MLS. And there you go. It's not all been plain sailing. They've been 22nd twice. The one interesting thing that I should say about Major League Soccer while we're talking about it is that the season 2020 obviously has not yet finished. It's actually ongoing. The MLS Cup playoffs, I think, begin on the 21st of November. Over here in the UK, we can actually watch Orlando's game against New York City. I've just been informed on Free Sports. So that will be happening from then. I think it's on for 3 days. The 21st, the 23rd and 4th, I think. That's the sort of first round of the MLS Cup playoffs, and it'll continue, I think, towards the end of November. Possibly the start of December. I'd need to check on that. So it's not finished, obviously, and therefore the stats and the data hasn't been included. So what we saw then with Orlando was that they jumped from 2019 up to 2021. So that whole year has just not been recorded, and I believe that there was a decision at Sports Interactive to just move on and just not count it and have everybody continue over. And for the MLS season, because it normally starts, I think it starts a season in front, I'm trying to remember, and therefore 2020 as a year didn't get included. So all the stats, all the scorers, all everything, not going to count. All the winner is not going to count. So in terms of MLS itself, if I can see the overall past winners, it stops at Seattle, and that'll be it. They were at CenturyLink Field, defeating regular opponents Toronto FC, who I believe they've played 3 of the last 4 at various venues, BMO Field, which is in Toronto, and of course more recently up in Washington. The other winners there, Atlanta United, they overcame Portland Timbers. One club that I'm really high on this season, and we are at A-League FC, is Columbus Crew. They're actually doing some really good stuff, and their first 11, I would say, is probably the strongest in MLS, I think. I would probably say so. I usually like to look at things like selection info. Selection info is my chosen menu of choice. They have the great man himself, Jesse Zardes. He is one of our favourite players, along with the likes of Darlington Nagbe, Lucas Zelerian. They've got so many good players. Pedro Santos, Luis Diaz. In defence, the likes of Affle, Jonathan Mensah, Eloy Room in goal is a great player. Valenzuela, left back. Artur, midfield. Yeah, they have, I think, certainly for my money, the strongest side in the MLS. And for me, they'll be the ones to beat. Tomorrow's edition will look a bit more in depth at the different rules around the squad. Registration, there's a salary cap, and there's all types of different contracts to get our heads around. On our roster, so I'm already talking like an American, we only have 2 players, which is useful. We've got Dominguez. He is a 26-year-old Paraguayan international. He is on loan at Guarani, down in Paraguay. He'll be there until the 31st of December. I should really know this, shouldn't I? It just goes to show you that I have not looked at that. So he is... he's due back at the end of this year. Yes, of course he is. In fact, less than a month away. So he is joined by Rodney Riddes, another 20-year-old Paraguayan. He was actually signed from Guarani. Yeah, there you go. So as part of that business, I think he was signed on an undisclosed fee, but then loaned back along with his new colleague, who was at Independiente, I seem to remember reading. Yes, he was. Charlie does know something. Amazing that. Paraguayan international, so a bit about him. Hoping that he could do some damage for us at the top end of the pitch. Role and duty has obviously been one of the things that received a bit of a change this year. So it's the star rating system is back, and when you look in the tactics screen, the little circles have disappeared this year. But we'll go into that in our tactical analysis. In fact, we'll also do an episode on set pieces, because I do quite like my set pieces, and I have to say often they are a part of Football Manager that gets ignored. Not enough love out there for set pieces, because you never quite know when you're going to need a goal. In the 90th minute, somebody nuts one in, and you think, yeah, I did plan for that. But there you go. That is going to be the end for today. So this first look has gone on a little bit longer than I planned for. Do like, subscribe, comment. Tell me who you're managing in the beta. See if it's as difficult as this one's going to be, because I suspect this will be quite tough. It's going to be a 10-episode series. Episode 1 today, and then it's going to carry on until the 24th of November when the main game is released. So do come along for the ride, strap yourself in, get comfortable, because we are headed to Austin, Texas. I'll see you tomorrow.